Okay, so I'm going to do this video a little differently from what I've done in the past. I don't have any kind of script made up. This is intended to be a much shorter video than what I have been doing. And I also wanted to see if me going unscripted can help with my voice inflation a little bit. So we'll see what happens. So today I wanted to talk about this complicated relationship I've been having with Pokemongo lately. To kind of give a little bit of a background, I used to be very active with the game for the first couple of years. And then my husband and I started doing the whole moving thing where we were moving to another state. And at the time I was working 4 jobs and also had a local Pokemongo community that I was managing and several other things going on. To be perfectly honest, I've looked back on it and wonder how the heck I even did it. So the Pokemongo thing got put on the back burner during the whole moving process. Specifically when we actually got on the road and drove all the trucks down to another state. And having to unpack and situate the house was a monumental task that kept me busy for some months. I did still manage to go out for Pokemon Go, but I was not going out as often. My life situation was just shifting and changing, and with me going from 4 jobs down to 2, I found myself being able to have time for other things that I've been neglecting for a few years. And so with that opportunity, it started affecting other areas such as Pokemon Go, because it just wasn't becoming all that important to me anymore versus the other things. There's other factors too that went into play on why Pokemon Go has been kind of pushed back. And one of the things that really bugs me about Pokemon Go that makes it just impossible for me to keep up with, even if I went back to neglecting all the things I've been neglecting, and that is the events that they do. They have so many events that go on all the bloody time, and most of them are also a very short time span. The only way for you to be able to participate in them is, I don't know. I work night jobs, and that takes up 4 to 5 days a week, and that's with my main one. And the time frame of these events are definitely not friendly for either the days that I work or the shifts that I work. And there's like several events that only last a couple of hours. And there's just no way that I'm able to do it. It's just not possible. I don't have the normal Monday through Friday 9 to 5 nonsense that makes it so that I can do these things. And to be perfectly honest, I don't want to go back to doing the Monday through Friday 9 to 5 thing. I actually am a lot happier with my job schedule and everything that's going on with it. So I'm not going to change it just for a stupid mobile phone game. It's just not worth it. So to continue with the whole events thing, you could bring up the argument of, well, you can just trade with someone to get the stuff that you're missing. The problem is that it's gotten to the point where it's everything. I can't even make it to community days events because, again, the schedule that they have it is while I'm sleeping for work, and it is, of course, on a work day. So if they had put it on a day that I was off, I could just mess up my sleep schedule for that day, and it won't be a big deal. But they've been putting it on Sundays, which is a work day, so I can't really do that. And because there's so many of these events going on, that is a lot of Pokemon that I have to trade for. And the problem with trading is that you can only do it with people who are super local to you. There are people that I have spread out around that would like to help me with the trade, but they can't because Niantic has the limits for trading very limited to just local people. They have to be within a few feet of you in order to do it. And I find that frustrating because you can send gifts to people around the world, you can battle with them, but you can't trade with them. It's really stupid in my opinion. And then on top of it, if you don't want to spend 1,000,000 Stardust just to trade one Pokemon, you have to really build up your friendship level with people. And that takes months to do, and that's if you're active every single day, and if the other person is also active every single day. And if both of those situations are not true, it's going to take extensively even longer. And even if the both of you are active every day to build up friendship, the problem is that by the time the friendship level gets high enough for you to trade, both of you have forgotten what it is that you're even trading. And even then, like, the cost of the Stardust is exponentially high. It's not 1,000,000, but it's still a lot. And it takes quite a while to build up Stardust. So trading is made very difficult by Niantic, and trading is also made very difficult by other players. So let's say that this so there's this voting going on, and I'm going to talk about that more in a little bit, where one of the options that they're letting people vote on for the next community day is for Vulpix. So Vulpix is a pretty fairly common Pokemon. So let's say that I wanted to trade to get a couple of shiny Vulpix, if it ends up being the one voted for community day. And let's say that there is someone who's like, yeah, I have all these extra shiny Vulpix, but I'm only going to trade for like this super rare shiny legendary that nobody has. Well, then the trade's not going to be able to happen. Now, I am going to play devil's advocate here and say, yes, people do have the right to choose what they're going to trade for the Pokemon that they have. It's totally within their right. But the problem is that Pokemon Go players are notorious for making it really difficult. The core game Pokemon players are much more flexible and willing to work with you, as they know and understand that not everyone is going to have all these super rare special Pokemon, and so they're more flexible and they're more willing to help people, whereas Pokemon Go players are more about helping themselves, if that makes sense. And so that dynamic is much different in Pokemon Go, and it's not very welcoming. I'm not sure if that's the word I'm looking for. I'll just go ahead with that for now. And so it's not very pleasant to try and trade with other players because of all these various factors going on. Like, it's just not fun to do it, and it's a whole mess of work that it really shouldn't be. So trying to trade for events that I miss out on is not a viable option. And And even among all that, there's actually very few Pokemon Go players that are willing to trade, period. It's really hard to find people who are willing to trade at all. Whereas with the core games, it's much easier to find someone who's willing to trade. And I think that comes down more to because Pokemon Go is so limited with the area that you're allowed to work with. Whereas the core games, you can trade with anyone around the world. It doesn't matter where they're located, you can still do the trade. So that makes it more easier to have a larger number of pool of people you can work with to make the trade happen. Whereas Pokemon Go, just it's a chore. It's a real chore. And I would say that the whole issue with events and trading is like the biggest thing that has made it so that I can't really enjoy the game like how I used to. There are just way too many events going on. Like it feels like there's some kind of event going on almost every day. And they're extremely short-lived, and a lot of them are difficult to do. Especially in the area that I am in. The area I was in before the move was a little bit easier, especially when you have to do events during times when the weather is being dookie. Whereas down here, if it's dumping buckets, you're pretty much our SOL. So what else? I have put in quite a bit of money into the game. I haven't actually sat down and gone through the emails to add up the numbers, but I know it's easily over 200. And that's actually kind of ridiculous. And before anyone goes into the comments to type up judgy things about how much money I put into the game, the money that I put into the game was for raid passes, incubators, expanding the backpack so I can hold more items, and expanding the Pokemon storage, which that's probably the most vital one of them all. I'm trying to limit my spending on the game and keeping it to the expanding the space. I do need to get some more incubators. I'm trying not to expand on the inventory space so much anymore, but we'll see what happens with that. So I'm trying to slow down how much I spend on the game, especially since that the amount of time that I put into playing them has dropped significantly. So, does the newest games, Pokemon Sword and Shield, have any influence on my decision and what I'm doing with Pokemon Go? Yes and no. I do find that Sword and Shield's raids are a lot more fun and enjoyable than how the raids are in Pokemon Go. I'm able to participate in raids with anyone around the world at any time. Whereas with Pokemon Go, the raids are only during specific hours of the day, and you can only play with local players. And just like the trading, you'll sometimes have problems finding other local players to play with. So if there's a raid for a Pokemon that you want to do, and you can't do it by yourself, well, you basically are screwed if you can't find other local players to do the raids with you. Whereas in Sword and Shield, you can just pop up the invitation and you will at least eventually find someone who's willing to jump in with you to give you a hand. Although, most of the raids, you can do them by yourself. Like the 1s and 2s, 3s, and even 4s you can do by yourself. The only ones that you really have to worry about finding other people for are the 5 stars. And you only need like one other person to do it. Whereas with the Pokemon Go raids, you have to have at least 7 for those legendary raids. And that's a lot of people to try and organize and get together at the same time and on a dime. Like there's not much planning time to it. And the battles in the core games are just much better than what Go does. I mean, what do you do in the Go battles? You just tap your screen as fast as you can. That's all there is to it. That's not interesting. That's not as intellectually and stimulating, I guess, is the best term I could think of on the spot here. Whereas with the core games, there's a little bit more strategy to it. So the battles are just more enjoyable in the core games. Far as other linkage to the core games versus Go goes, am I going to transfer my Pokemon to Sword and Shield? I'm still in the holding pattern for that. DLC for Sword and Shield was announced where they were going to expand on the casts that are available in the games. I still want to wait and see if they're going to eventually have the full cast available in there. If they do, then yes, I will be transferring Pokemon from Go into Sword and Shield. I do have tons of extra shiny Pokemon that nobody local wants, so I might as well send them to my core game and have them available there, because I'm more likely to find players in the core series games who will be interested in having them than I am in Go. I mean, that's just the way it is. If they don't extend the cast to all of Pokemon Sword and Shield, I'm still unsure on what I'm gonna do. I guess that's just gonna have to be one of those I'll cross the bridge when I get to it type of deals. But there is a chance that I would transfer a whole bunch of Pokemon from Go into Sword and Shield. I'm thinking I'm going to leave my 100s in Go, though. My 100 IVs. And that's mainly because the whole issue of, sure, they're perfect IVs in Go, but once you send them over to the core games, their stats basically re-roll, and they're not going to be high IVs anymore. They might get dookie IVs for some of them stats. So I don't know. It's something I'm still thinking about. There's still time to figure it out. I mean, I don't think that the first DLC comes out until like June, if I'm remembering right. I think it's June. Yeah, I think it's June, if I'm remembering right. So it's still plenty of time to think about it. Does this mean I'm going to stop playing Pokemon Go altogether? No. I'm still going to be playing it now and then. I'm just not going to be hardcore into it like I used to be. I'm not going to be trying as hard for it as I used to be. It's just really difficult with a lot of aspects of it, and it makes you work harder than what you really need to do, in my opinion. Like, for example, the voting that they're having for Community Day for February. So they said that they were going to have people vote on it, and I thought, oh, okay, well, that's actually kind of neat, how the players have an influence on what the Community Day Pokemon's going to be. And then I found out how the voting was going to be done. They want you to go running around to Pokestops, spin them, and see if the task has the Pokemon that you want to vote for. If it doesn't, you have to cancel that out and go run around and find a different Pokestop that might have the one that you want. And I find that this is stupid and a lot more work than it needs to be done. And it feels like that this is something that can be easily exploited by people to influence the results. Like every other developer who wants to have their players give input on what they're going to do with their product, they usually just have it done online, like through your browser. They'll have like surveys or polls and whatnot. Like even EA does it this way. But Niantic has this like really stupid way of voting that I just don't think is going to be a good idea, and it's way too much work to do. And surprise, surprise, like every other event, you only have a short span of time to do it, and it's I don't know. I'm just getting really tired of all this whole everything is an emergency that you have to do real quickly, and you only have a short span to do it. And if you don't, you're just out of luck. Deal with it. LOL. I'm just not into all that. So I mean, I'll still do the best that I can. It's just not gonna be something on the forefront like it used to be. It's definitely going on the back burner. It's just too much work to try and keep up with. They have way too many events going on. The events are really short to do, and the activities that you do with it are just kind of getting to be a point where it's like, do we really have to work this hard to get this thing? So yeah, my relationship with Pokemon Go is complicated. I don't know which way it's gonna turn in the future. I mean, who knows? Things could definitely change for the better in the future. You never know. Maybe things will get easier down the road for players, but it could also become more of a pain. Like, for example, they introduced the whole thing where you could feed your buddy Pokemon and do all these things with it, but I'm finding that it's actually really difficult to do some of these tasks with them. I still have not been able to get my buddy Pokemon to eat any of the, might I add, difficult to acquire berries. Every time I try, it does not take it. I've watched videos, I've followed people's tips on how to do it, and it just is not working. And I'm sorry, but that's not fun. That's not enjoyable. The core games, for all the faults that Sword and Shield have, they do make it easier to interact with your Pokemon and do the tasks that they expect you to do. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are a couple things that Niantic does better than what Game Freak has done with Sword and Shield. Such as the whole, if the raid Pokemon that you do is shiny, it's an automatic catch no matter what. Whereas in Sword and Shield, if it's shiny and from a raid, there's actually a decent chance that it'll run. And I've been running into that left and right this weekend, and trust me, it's a huge bummer. But overall, I find that the core games are just have more good points than bad to them versus Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go started off being, really awesome, and then just within like the past year or two, it's taken a sharp dive for me. But again, like who knows what the future holds? Maybe it'll get better, and maybe it won't. We'll see. So yeah, I thought that doing a video on this was going to be easier than me trying to type everything up on Facebook and expecting people to sit there and read a wall of text. So I thought that this format would be, just easier for everyone. Yeah, so that's basically it as far as me with Pokemon Go goes. If you have any additional questions, you can ask me here on YouTube, or if you're connected with me on Facebook, you can ask me there as well. Thanks for listening, and I hope that this clarifies on where my stance is with Pokemon Go. Be sure to like and subscribe for more videos. Leave a comment if there's something you'd like to see in the future. Thanks for watching.